Okay, I'll start the class. Welcome to the morning Srimad Bhagavatam class. And today we are reading the verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 31, and verse number 47. I'll read the verse. Tasman nakaryah santraso nakarpanyam na sambramaha buddhva jivagatim dhiro mukta sangascharet iha. Tasman nakaryah santraso Nakarpanyam na sambramaha buddhva jivagatim dhiro mukta sangascharet iha. Word to word. Tasmat, on account of death. Na, not. Karyaha, should be done. Santrasaha, horror. Na, not. Karpanyam, miserliness. Na, not. Sambramaha, eagerness for material gain. Buddhva, realizing. Jiva Gatim, the true nature of the living entity. Dhiraha, steadfast. Mukta Sangaha, free from attachment. Charit, one should move about. Iha, in this world. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Therefore, one should not view death with horror, nor have recourse to defining the body as soul, nor give way to exaggeration in enjoying the bodily necessities of life. Realizing the true nature of the living entity, one should move about in the world free from attachment and steadfast in purpose. Purport: a sane person who has understood the philosophy of life and death is very upset upon hearing of the horrible, hellish condition of life in the womb of the mother or outside of the mother. But one has to make a solution to the problems of life. A sane man should understand the miserable condition of this material body. Without being unnecessarily upset, he should try to find out if there is a remedy. The remedial measures can be understood when one associates with persons who are liberated. It must be understood who is actually liberated. The liberated person is described in Bhagavad Gita, one who engages in uninterrupted devotional service to the Lord, having surpassed the stringent laws of material nature, is understood to be situated in Brahman. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is beyond the material creation. It is admitted even by impersonalists like Shankaracharya that Narayana is transcendental to this material creation. As such, when one actually engages in the service of the Lord in various forms, either Narayana or Radha Krishna or Sita Rama, he is understood to be on the platform of liberation. The Bhagavatam also confirms that liberation means to be situated in one's constitutional position. Since a living entity is eternally the servitor of the Supreme Lord, when one seriously and sincerely engages in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, he is situated in the position of liberation. One should try to associate with a liberated person, and then the problems of life, namely birth and death, can be solved. While discharging devotional service in full Krishna consciousness, one should not be miserly. He should not unnecessarily show that he has renounced this world. Actually, renunciation is not possible. If one renounces his palatial building and goes to a forest, there is actually no renunciation, for the palatial building is the property of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the forest is also the property of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If he changes from one property to another, that does not mean that he renounces. He was never the proprietor of either the palace or the forest. Renunciation necessitates renouncing the false understanding that one can lord it over material nature. When one renounces this false attitude and renounces the puffed up position that he is also God, that is real renunciation. Otherwise, there is no meaning of renunciation. Rupa Goswami advises that if one renounces anything which could be applied in the service of the Lord and does not use it for that purpose, that is called Falgu Vairagya, insufficient or false renunciation. Everything belongs to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, everything can be engaged in the service of the Lord. Nothing should be used for one's sense gratification. That is real renunciation. nor should one unnecessarily increase the necessities of the body. We should be satisfied with whatever is offered and supplied by Krishna without much personal endeavor. We should spend our time executing devotional service in Krishna consciousness. That is the solution to the problem of life and death. We'll do the prayers and have some discussion. Om Ajnanathmirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamsha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sate Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Pashatya Deshatharini Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Narayanam Namaskrutyam Naram Cheva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udiraye Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Alright, today we are reading verse 331-47. I'll read the translation one more time. Therefore, one should not view death with horror, nor have recourse to defining the body as soul, nor give way to exaggeration in enjoying the bodily necessities of life. Realizing the true nature of the living entity, one should move about in the world free from attachment and steadfast in purpose. So, this is coming to a conclusion today and tomorrow of this chapter. Lord Kapila Muni, in response to his mother's inquiry, in this chapter, he explains how the soul enters into a mother's womb and goes through each stage. He explains through every day or even month, and then uh, the rest of the chapter he talks about how the living entity goes through various sufferings in the material world, and how also he touches upon how the woman plays a role in a man's life and vice versa, and uh, how they are influenced by each other and takes up next life and suffers in lives to come, lifetimes, in different lifetimes. And towards the end, he was explaining how this death, or the birth and death, the two problems or the important events in a living entity's lifetime is taken place. So he's concluding in this verse. So I just want to touch upon the previous verse where he nicely explains the definition of a birth and death, and then he concludes it. So the translation of the previous verse is, when the eyes lose their power to see color or form due to morbid affliction of the optic nerve, the sense of sight becomes deadened. The living entity, who is the seer of both the eyes and the sight, loses his power of vision. In the same way, when the physical body, the place where perception of objects occurs, is rendered incapable of perceiving, that is known as death. When one begins to view the physical body as one's very self, that is called birth. So there is this the instrument of the senses, uh, and there is the sense perception, and uh, there is this soul, the material body and the soul. So Prabhupada in the Purpuri explains, when one says I see, that means there is a something within someone, there is inside, there is a soul which is seeing the living entity, and that sees. So how does it see? Through the senses, like with uh, the sense perception, the sight with the eyes. So if the instrument, which is the senses, is not present, the soul cannot see. Similarly, uh, we can say that this is a material body, is this is an instrument, and when the material body ceases to live, then the soul cannot see. So, in other words, that is death. When the instrument of action, just like the sense perception of the sight, you cannot see the spectacles. Using the spectacles, that is an instrument Prabhupada defines here. If you don't have spectacles, you cannot see clearly, or you cannot see in sometimes. The same way, if the material body ceases, then the soul cannot see, and that is death. And when the soul takes up another instrument, which is another material body, then he can see again. That means that is how Lord Kapila has defined it is birth. So it's easy to understand with Prabhupada purport how one can see and cannot see. Similarly, how he relates to the birth and death. And in this translation, it's concluding, therefore, uh, Lord Kapila says that why or what one should do, what one should not do. There are three things he mentioned primarily. One is one should not view death with horror. Another thing is do not see the body as soul, nor uh, enjoy the bodily necessities of life, thinking, the body is what he is, not the soul. So one should not view death with horror. This is very important. Um, I don't know about others, but when I was growing up, when I viewed death, uh, person in our family members or extended family, when I see they die, it it created a lot of horror within me as well. Like, okay, this is material body, and the body after the person dies, then he was being buried or putting into a fire. So that created a lot of fear within me. Like I used to have these dreams of, okay, if I die, they put me on the fire, and then how it feels. So those kind of, as a child, uh, I used to feel that. I used to think about it, even as I was growing up, and a few years before, I used to think, okay, what is that pain looks like when you die? Uh, and there were books and there were different things written, and I was googling really how does it looks like, how does what is what does it feels like, and there is certainly a lot of pain, uh, and we know that too. Even in Lord Kapila Muni explains in this chapter how much painful it to enter into the mother's womb, and also to come out of the mother's womb, and also how one exits from this instrument called body. However, there is, due to this modern science and uh, the medicine, we can numb the pain. That is that given me some uh, uh, relaxing way of thinking, because it's without this, when if one has to go through the real pain of death, that is not possible to, I mean, it's very not easier. I found that there are some how this modern science has developed that they can numb the pain of, I don't know, and until I face death, what is real pain, but there are certain ways that you can numb the pain. But anyways, one should not view death with horror. As we know, in Bhagavad Gita, the there is a verse, and there are several verses Krishna has quoted, uh, that this body is the material body, which is perishable, but the soul, which is imperishable, and soul doesn't have birth and death, whereas the body does. Just want to read the Prabhupada purpose in one of the Bhagavad Gita's verse that gives us why we should not be thinking the death as a horror. The material body is perishable by nature. It may perish immediately, or it may do so after 100 years. It is a question of time only. There is no chance of maintaining it indefinitely. But the spirit soul is so minute that it cannot even be seen by an enemy, to say nothing of being killed. It is so small that no one can have any idea how to measure its dimension. So, from both viewpoints, there is no cause of lamentation, because the living entity, as he is, cannot be killed, nor can the material body be saved for any length of time or permanently protected. So, here Krishna explains to Arjuna that how he should not lament of the material bodies, because it cannot be, the soul cannot be killed. So, the next point Lord Kapila says is one should not define the body as a soul, but this is very frequently one defines it, that this is when one talks about the identity. I am so and so, I work here, I am son of so and so father. uh, so we always try to identify with our body, uh, and Lord Kapila says that one should not define the body as soul. And what happens when we define the body as soul? We go through this anger, envy, lust, false ego, they all come into play. And then we go through the suffering. I mean, the body has all the senses uh, that we sees, all the sense perception. And when we define ourselves as a body, then we go through several material sufferings. We'll go through the purport one more time, how Prabhupada has explains that what kind of sufferings that we go through. And the last one is Lord Kabbalah says that, okay, thinking oneself as a body or enjoying the bodily necessities of life, one should not do that as well. Uh, that is the last one. And realizing, so what is the solution? One should realize the true nature of oneself. So, what is that nature? That one's constitutional position, that one is a servitor of the Supreme Lord. I mean, he's a soul in first place, and we need to serve. His eternal position is to serve the Supreme Lord, and also to understand that we have bodies, we have this instrument, we have the senses, mind and intelligence, and also we do certain actions, and how that creates the next body, and also the influence of time, kala, how that plays. So we need to understand all these things. So when we realize our true self this way, and then move about in this world free from attachment. So neither we should attach to this material things, including body, nor we should completely renounce, uh, as Prabhupada states in the purport, which is called false renunciation. We should not completely renounce, but be steadfast in purpose. That means, how Prabhupada states in the purport, quoting Rupa Goswami's in Nectar of Devotion, uh, the true renunciation, the Anashaktasya Vishayan. There is a verse in Nectar of Devotion which talks about how one should use everything in the service of the Lord, or engage everything in the service of the Lord. That is true renunciation. So I'd like to go through the purport once. A sane person who has understood the philosophy of life and death is very upset upon hearing of the horrible hellish condition of life. So in the previous verses, it's in detail explains how a living entity in the mother's womb goes through various sufferings. And also outside of the mother's womb, once he's out, uh, there is suffering. I mean, even we can even see within ourselves how much suffering we are going through. There is this mind which tries to control us. There's a lot of suffering there. Through that, we see this envy upon others. We have this anger, cannot control that. So there is a lot of suffering outside the mother as well as we are living. So that itself is a hellish condition of life. We don't really need to go to hell to actually perceive what it means. We are going through our hellish life every day, every moment. If we think through carefully, uh, because of our, we cannot control our mind and the senses, they're always reminding us our hellish condition of life. But there, one has to make a solution to the problems of life. And what is that solution? We know the problems now. It's birth, old age, disease, and death. We know these problems are there. And the solution to that is not just understanding who we are, our true nature, and what miseries are going through. And the solution actually is to find a person who has already understood, or who is already living that life, and who already knows that remedy. So who, the person who is liberated, one need to associate with those persons who is liberated. And who is actually liberated? Prabhupada quotes the Bhagavad Gita: one who engages in uninterrupted devotional service to the Lord, having surpassed the stringent laws of material nature, is understood to be situated in Brahman. Uh, so this person who is surpassed the material laws of nature, which means, what are the material laws? The laws that states how one thinks that he's connected to the body, not the soul, and how the different modes play. So one who has surpassed all of that, one who has transcended all these material laws, that person, we need to go and approach it. This quote, this Bhagavad Gita is quoted the verse number 1854. Just go through quickly. Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma na shochati na kangshati samasarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labate param. One who is thus transcendentally situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments nor desires to have anything. He is equally disposed to every living entity. In that state, he attains pure devotional service unto me. So in the purport, Prabhupada states, one who is engaged in pure devotional service to the Supreme Lord is already in a state of liberation called Brahma Bhuta. Without being one with the Supreme, one cannot render service unto him. In the next paragraph, he states, in the material concept of life, when one works for sense gratification, there is misery. But in the absolute world, when one is engaged in pure devotional service, there is no misery. The devotee in Krishna consciousness has nothing for which to lament or desire. So here, in this verse, Prabhupada states, if one is already doing devotional service, one is already situated in Brahmabhuta. So that person who is situated in Brahman, or one who is completely engaged in Lord's service, that person needs to be approached. That person is called liberated. So going back to the translations, that one need to realize the true nature of the living entity, uh, and one should move about in the world free from attachment and steadfast in purpose. So this can happen when one approaches to that living entity or the soul who has been already liberated or who is completely engaged in devotional service of the Lord. And this Lord Kapila states here also, Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, in one of the verse, he states the same. I think in verse 2.56, Dukkeshvanudvignamana Sukhesh Vigataspruha Vitaraga Bhaya Krodha Sthitadhir Muni Ruchyate. So that person who is Sthitadhir Muni, one who is not disturbed in mind even amidst the threefold miseries, or elated when there is happiness, and who is free from attachment, fear, and anger, is called a sage of steady mind. So one need to come to this stage of steady mind, or a sage of steady mind, or here is named in Sanskrit as Titadhir Muni. So what does he looks like? He is different from an ordinary Muni, Prabhupada states. The Sthitadhir Muni is always in Krishna consciousness, for he has exhausted all his business of creative speculation, and he has surpassed the stage of mental speculations and has come to the conclusion that Lord Sri Krishna or Vasudeva is everything. He is called a Muni fixed in mind. Such a fully Krishna conscious person is not at all disturbed by the onslaughts of the threefold miseries, for he accepts all miseries as the mercy of the Lord, thinking himself only worthy of more trouble due to his past misdeeds. And he sees that his miseries, by the grace of the Lord, are minimized to the lowest. Similarly, when he is happy, he gives credit to the Lord, thinking himself unworthy of the happiness. He realizes that it is due only to the Lord's grace that he is in such a comfortable condition and able to render better service to the Lord. And for the service of the Lord, he is always daring and active and is not influenced by attachment or aversion. So that is how one need to come to that stage after realizing, after being self-realized. And in the later purport, Prabhupada states how one should be engaging completely in the Lord's service. And more importantly, he talks about what is the true renunciation. He gives a very good analogy or example where one may say that I'm staying in this big palace or building, and then he will get out of this building and go to the forest, just like how Arjuna has said to Lord Krishna. Then Prabhupada says, okay, that is not renunciation, because whether you live in the property uh, of like a palace or you go to the forest, both are Lord's properties. Everything is Krishna's. And then how can we say that, okay, now I am living a life of a poor man and then therefore I am renunciated? That is not renunciation. That is not true renunciation. The renunciation, first he says one is to understand that he's not the Lord. His Lord is the Krishna is the Lord. One needs to renunciate that false attitude that one can lord it over material nature and renounce the puffed up position. That is renunciation. That is real renunciation. And Rupa Goswami's quoted Nectar of Devotion. I have that verse open here. He says, Anasaktasya Vishayan Yadhartam Upayunjata Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe Yuktam Vairagi Muchate. When one is not attached to anything, but at the same time accepts everything in relation to Krishna, one is rightly situated above possessiveness. On the other hand, one who rejects everything without knowledge of its relationship to Krishna is not as complete in his renunciation. So one needs to use everything in the term in the service of the Lord. That means one can enjoy as much as it is required, whether it pertains to their bodily necessities or any other material things. One can use it as much as it is needed, required only, not to exaggerate it, but that too, as much as when one can apply that enjoyment in the service of the Lord, then uh, one can renounce anything that way. So, when one spends their time executing the devotional service in such a way, renouncing in such a way, then uh, that gives us a solution to the problem of life and death. That's how Prabhupada concludes in this purport. Well, we are a couple of minutes over. I will conclude here. Uh, Please forgive me if I have spoken something, and if anyone would like to add one or two, please unmute yourself and we can have some discussion. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. The, the point that struck me today was, the horror of death. We should not be, afraid of death. That somehow struck a point today, chord today. Um, I was thinking that growing up, there were things that my mom would often say, don't do this. Like, for example, if we are served rice, we should not make them into balls. Like, sometimes they would make it into little things and pop it in the mouth. I learned a lot of such things. She'll say, don't do this, don't do that, don't draw with water, whatnot. And, you should only give things with not in multiples of 10. Like if you're giving cash or something, it should be 11, not 10, should be 101, not 100. Years later, then I would always question her, why not this, why not that? Finally, one day she said, all of those things that are don'ts are because they are associated with rituals that are associated with done after death.
Mm.
Once somebody dies, then there is 13-day, at least in our family system, there are rituals that are done for 13 days. The
Yeah.
13th day is done to bring auspiciousness back into the life. So it was, first of all, that the first 12 days is considered super inauspicious, unclean, and all that. And then the rituals that are associated with are also demonized in one way or the other. And so there is this horror that, like you spoke, and like Srila Prabhupada says, that that's being transmitted from one generation to another generation. So somehow that struck a chord for me. Yeah, I mean, I think it's there that, first of all, I think innately there is fear of death, and then there is this things that are being passed down, family systems. So yeah, so thank you so much for pointing that out. And I think, for me personally, when I read so there were years, like you said, we see deaths in the family, because I have a large family. I've seen that. But when it happened for me, like in close proximity, like when my own dad passed away, at that time I had started reading Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, and that gave so much strength. That
Mm.
brought the perspective. Yes, I miss him. Yes, there is grief and all that, but also there is this strong belief. I mean, even though I was super new, but the fact that Prabhupada spoke the truth, and the fact that in some way, in a loosely connected way, I was reading Prabhupada's books, gave me so much strength. And so, yeah, I don't know, I'm rambling about, but I think what you said struck a chord with me. So I wanted to share. Thank you.
No, thank you, Mataji. Thanks. Yeah, that is, everyone can connect to that. Especially, we create so many beliefs in our childhood. Not just that, there's so many such beliefs which Prabhupada has clarified when we read his Bhagavad Gita. It's so fortunate to have Prabhupada in our lives. He has answered so many questions to remove all our beliefs. Otherwise, that is what I am thinking. That is a hellish life, keeping all those beliefs in our mind and getting fear, anger, whatnot. So we are, that is one way I can think how Prabhupada helped in my life. Thank you. Anyone else? All right, we will end it up here. Thank you for joining again. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Hare Krishna.